batch planning, set lists, and team members. I know it's a mouthful. I don't know if that's actually going to be the title of this video or not, but the concept is there. Batch planning is a game changer for worship pastors, worship leaders, honestly, anybody who's planning anything. Batch planning is just the juice to be able to get through your planning effectively, with energy, and without the overwhelming sense of dread that comes with wondering, did everything get planned? With batching, you know it's getting done because you're focusing all of your energy into getting it done into one big chunk of time. So what is batch planning? Batch planning is taking all of the different planning moments that you have in your days, your weeks, your months, and just squishing it all together into a certain amount of time to where you're not constantly having these little moments of having to get things planned. You're just doing it in one foul swoop. And for me, with my worship leadership and my team, this has been incredibly helpful because what I'm doing is I am preparing a full month of set lists. I'm getting all the chord charts organized, the MP3s downloaded, I'm communicating with my team, sending out all the emails for Planning Center, all of it in one big swoop. And maybe you're asking yourself at this moment, Riley, isn't that unspiritual to be able to plan for a set list that's 4 weeks away today? Don't you want to be open to the Spirit guiding you and maybe inspiring you with a new song for that Sunday, days before it happens? Is it really worth being able to plan it all when maybe you're eliminating the opportunity for spontaneity or just in the moment creativity? And to that, I'd say, I don't really know. I have done both things. I've batch planned. I've also planned set lists hours before the event. And for me, I've found that batch planning has been really helpful for just my mental, physical, everything. All my well-being is just much better when I batch plan. I found that when I would put my planning off to the week of or day of for events, I was stressed out, I was anxious, I wouldn't eat enough food, I would drink way too much coffee, had a hard time sleeping, would neglect other areas of my life because it just felt too overwhelming. But with batch planning, I feel like I'm able to do it well and manage everything else on my plate much easier. Is it more spiritual, less spiritual? Is it less spontaneous or more spontaneous? More creative, less creative? I don't really know. Again, from my experience, I feel like when I'm well prepared, when I memorize songs, I know the chord charts, I feel comfortable with the metronome, my band is planned out, the stage is set, everything's dialed in, I actually feel more confident with going off script. So for me, batch planning is the best. It is so great. And if you're not doing this yet, maybe this video will inspire you to do it, especially if you're someone who gets anxious about set lists and prep every single week. This is the juice that's going to fill you up for your worship leadership in a lot of respects. It really does help you stay grounded. And actually, for me, has kind of separated myself a little bit from the performance part of worship leadership because what I'm doing is I'm preparing songs, trusting that in a few weeks, these songs are going to be used by God in a powerful way in our church. And so I'm not trying to get uber spiritual about it, but I feel like my faith has been a bit increased through batch planning because I'm really relying on the Spirit to move through this planning. So let's talk about how to do your batch planning. And the first thing you got to do before you actually get into the planning is you got to do some prep. So let's talk about the prep that will get you really dialed in for when you hit your computer, not physically, but when you get behind your computer and do your batch planning. Create a spreadsheet for your prep. Okay, for this video, I'm going to focus on the month of May because this is the most recent month of my planning. So you're just getting a real-time look into the guts of my team scheduling and my set list planning. But here, this is just my spreadsheet. So I have 4 Sundays here. I think this is a 5. Nope, it's a 4. I'm sorry, I can't count. This is a 5-week month, May 1st all the way to the 29th. And you'll see here that I have 4 songs. Typically on our Sunday gatherings, we lead 4 songs for the morning services. So I have my 4 songs here, and I've planned each Sunday through the month. Here is some band members that I kind of tentatively put in here. I'll show you in a moment, a few steps here about my matrix with Planning Center and who's actually confirmed that they're available for these different Sundays. But what I'm trying to do in this spreadsheet is just get an idea. What songs do I want to do and who's gonna be potentially leading these songs? So I'll do that and kind of rough draft my band in here. So this is a full month of planning. I did this all in about an hour and a half, just getting the names of songs and the keys of songs into this document. All of the prep with the MP3s and chord charts will come a little bit later, but this is my document. 2022. Also, if you go up or down in here, you'll see I have January, February, March. I'm just kind of going down throughout the year. These are some old months from last year. But the idea here is that I could plan a full month of songs for May, but I can also look back at what we've done in the past. So I have a glance, or a really easy kind of like at a glance view of what songs we've done, introduced, what didn't work, what did work. And at the end of the year, I'll kind of see, oh yeah, we introduced 12 songs, or we introduced no songs, or we did that song a lot, or whatever it might be. So just kind of helpful for just understanding where the worship team is at and what songs you're doing throughout the year. Keep a running list of songs that inspire you. So in this spreadsheet, I have a couple tabs from 2021, 2022, but I also have this other tab called New Songs. And in the New Songs tab, I have potential new songs here. I have just the months of the year right here. These songs do not correlate with these months. It's just 2 lists. But then here with songs introduced, I will match these songs to these months. I could probably figure out a better way to label this, but in January, we were pretty late to the game. January 2022, we finally introduced Graves into Gardens, and you'll see down the line some different songs we introduced. I also keep a verdict column just to know we keep it or we can still consider it. Haven't gotten a song, Son of Suffering yet. I'm still kind of working through that one. But I'll just keep a running list here because as I'm preparing set lists for the month, I want to pull potentially a potential new song for that upcoming month. And I want to plan for it, get out ahead of it, so I know I can prepare the team for that particular song. So this New Songs tab is really helpful for me. Maybe you keep a Spotify playlist or an Apple playlist or a YouTube playlist with your new songs you want to introduce. This has just been helpful for me because it's all in the same doc. New songs and set list prep. Ask your team to input 2 months of blockout dates. Okay, at this point in my planning, this is where I jump into Planning Center. And I'm sending out that email to the team for blockout dates. I try to do this, 2 weeks before the upcoming month for the next 2 months. Or sometimes if I'm really feeling it, I'll do it a month ahead for the following 2 months. So I'm sending an email at the beginning of 1 month and getting blockout dates for 3 months down the line. I would have already had the month dialed in that I sent out that email for, if that makes sense. But I'm just trying to get out ahead of my blockout dates. I just want to know when people are going to be here, when they're going to be out. A lot of people know when they're going to be out and when they're going to be in, and a lot of people don't. So Things obviously flex a little bit as life happens, but I found that getting 2 months out, at least like a 70% view of what that's gonna look like is really helpful for me. So thank God for Planning Center, block out dates, crazy helpful. Set aside a 3-hour block of time to prepare. Okay, now that you've got your spreadsheet dialed in, your new songs tab dialed in, your block out dates all compiled into Planning Center, you got your software, you got your stuff all dialed in. Now that's all in place. Now it's time to set aside a 3-hour to 4-hour block of a day to do your batch planning. I know that 3 to 4 hours sounds like a long time to plan for, and if you're working a day job and your only time to really plan for worship sets is maybe on the weekends or early in the morning for your kids wake up, whatever it might be, I know this could be a stretch, but I encourage you to collaborate with whoever you gotta collaborate with, whether it's staff members, your family, to be able to set aside a block, because although that's a lot of time to set aside for this kind of planning, just imagine how much time you're saving in the long run by doing this. It's just so helpful. So if you're gonna get all into batching, you gotta set aside some time to really do it. Okay, now that we've talked about all the prep necessary for batch planning, now let's talk about it. Batch planning, how are we gonna do it? Schedule your teams. I jump into Planning Center at this point and schedule my teams for the weeks ahead. And I found that this is really helpful for me to do first, because for me in my context, I just gotta know who's on the team to know what songs to do. Everybody on my team can handle the songs that we do regularly, but say I get to a Sunday where no female vocalists are available. That's gonna change the set list a little bit. If no drummers are available, that's gonna change the set list a little bit, or at least the arrangements potentially. And I don't want my band to dictate what songs we play and lead for the church, but it is helpful to know who's available as you're planning, because it just kind of helps you set the tone for what that Sunday is gonna look like a little bit. So if you're in a context where you're really strapped for a certain instrumentalist, like you got one drummer, you got one bass player or something, and you're still trying to give them a break throughout the month, then it's just helpful to plan out your team first, because then you'll kind of know what those Sundays are going to look like with them, without them, and you kind of plan accordingly. Create your set lists. This is my favorite part of the planning process. I know for a lot of people this will be kind of stressful, because you are now thinking about multiple Sundays at one time, and it can seem overwhelming, can feel a little bit like, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to do this. Is this really gonna work? But I would encourage you, have some fun with this. This is your time to be led by God's Spirit, to partner with God in a sense, to craft these times for your church. And rather than letting it become an overwhelming pressure cooker for your brain and your heart, let it be a moment to just open up your heart to God for a few hours and just let Him speak to you about some songs to play. I've found that when I'm planning set lists, what I like to do is a couple different things. One, I'll grab my guitar and I'll just kind of play through some different songs and see what kind of naturally goes into the next song. That helps me determine what songs to put in a set list. If that becomes too much, and I've done that for too long, I'll get up and walk around a little bit, do some dishes if I'm at home doing this. I'll work on something else that's just kind of not brainless, but doesn't require as much brain power. That sometimes helps shake up my brain a little bit and see a new solution to a set list I couldn't see at my desk. I try to just be open during this time. And that's the best part about batch planning, is that you are just creating an environment to be open to creative inspiration, to be led by God, and to find some songs that work together. So get into your set lists and have a good time with it. Brew a good cup of coffee or get some kombucha, whatever you want to get as you're planning. Make it a fun experience. purchase and upload the correct MP3s to Planning Center. I'm assuming that in your church context, that on Sundays, you're probably leading songs that other people have written. You're looking to worship bands that have written songs that you love and grabbing those songs and leading them with your church family. That's what I do primarily at our church, and that requires buying songs from iTunes to upload to Planning Center so that your team knows what to play. It's really important to buy songs, to not just download them. I did that for a while, don't tell anybody, but you gotta buy these songs. Just do it the legit way, but you gotta buy the correct arrangement. Some of these songs, man, you'll go to iTunes for Graves in the Gardens and you'll see a full band, you'll see an acoustic, you'll see a remix that somebody else has done. Find the song that matches the arrangement that you wanna lead with your church and upload that to Planning Center. And I say that because what I found is really helpful for my team is finding MP3s that have the arrangement you want to lead, because your band is going to learn that version for Sunday. And so you're just kind of going the extra mile to tell your team, hey, just memorize the song. Memorize the arrangement. This is what we're going to do on Sunday. And if we want to add another chorus, we can add another chorus, whatever it might be, but give them the arrangement that they're going to be following, just to prepare them as best as you can. So during your batch processing and planning, grab the right MP3s and shoot those up to Planning Center. It'll be a blessing for you and crazy instructive for your team. Draft your chord charts. Now, everybody has a different opinion about how to draft up their chord charts. Some people like to create a chord chart that just has, the verses, one chorus, a couple instrumentals, just kind of listed out. And during practice, they'll kind of talk through like the arrangement of that song. Some people like to map it out from top to bottom, from beginning to end, so you can just read straight through it. Some people like to do sheet music, all kinds of different things. I found that for me with my band and the way that we run rehearsals and practices, that's really helpful for me to make a real standard chord chart, but to map it from beginning to end. So I can say, hey, go to chorus 5, 1, 2, 3, and jump right in. That's been really helpful for me. So let's go to the computer real quick and I'll show you how I draft my chord charts in Planning Center. So I've pulled up here the song Christ is Risen by Mac Brock, and I'm gonna go here to the lyrics and chords portion of the song. This is where I build out my my chord charts. So I use the Planning Center chord chart builder. It's crazy easy, and it's so easy to change keys on the fly if you need to do that. So I really love this. You'll see here that this is where I edit the song. You'll notice that the chords are all built into the actual lyrics themselves with brackets. That's how the chords appear over the words with this bracket system. It's kind of code, most basic code ever. But I just go from the intro, it's the top of the song, straight down, column 2, straight down, page 2, just straight down and straight down. So if you listen to the recording of Christ is Risen by Mac Brock, his studio version, this is exactly what he did. This is the full map. And so I added in my own things, instrumental 1, pre-chorus 1A. I break down pre-choruses 1A to 1B sometimes, just to make it really clear for the team. I know it's probably a bit much. I think you're probably learning a lot about my personality right now. I like to have a bit of control over things, and I'm, I wouldn't say super organized, just very particular, but this has been really helpful for us on Sunday mornings just to fly through songs. So I draft all my chord charts in Planning Center. Maybe I'll make a video about this in the future about how to build out chord charts in Planning Center, because it is incredible. Just a sneak peek into how great it is. If you go back to the song here, because I made everything in the lyrics and chords section, it broke down that arrangement I made into a lyrics PDF. I made my chord chart in A, so that's right there. But I simply add a key like D. It'll add it down here, and if you go click on the D, I now have a chord chart in D. I didn't do a thing. I just added the key, and it made a perfect D version of the chord chart. So instead of editing your songs in Word or Pages or something like that, or Google Docs, this is just like the most flexible thing on the planet. I just thank God so much for Planning Center. They get better and better every single day. So that's what I try to do during this batch process, is get into Planning Center and make my chord charts. Create your backing tracks and automation. So not everybody's gonna do this part of the process, and honestly, if you're gonna be doing this, I'd add a couple extra hours to your batching, or do this as a batched project on another day, because once you include tracks and different instruments in your software, it can take a lot of time to set up. If you already have it all set up, that's one thing, but this does just take a bit of time. So I would add a couple extra hours and maybe even do it on a different day. So if you are gonna do this, just set aside time for it, have some fun with it, and build it into your schedule. Communicate with your team. This is kind of the last step to your batch planning. Once you've got your set list dialed in, your team dialed in, chord charts, MP3s, tracks, everything is wrapped up into Planning Center and your Google spreadsheet, is now time to, boom, send your scheduled email to everybody on your team. So I hope that these tips have been helpful for you. Batch planning is crazy helpful for me. There's things that I'm sure I missed. I didn't talk about prepping, service orders, which we might talk about in a different video. So if this is your first, exposure to batch planning, I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, things I can clarify. Just so I'm learning a lot of this as I'm sharing it, kind of documenting the process in a lot of ways. So I might not have all the answers, but would love to talk with you and help you kind of get in that mindset of planning big like this. So I hope that you have a great Sunday. Looking forward to seeing you in the next video, and God bless. See you later.